Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. It's time for another Comic Beat Insider, the weekly Zoom pandemic podcast that Heidi McDonald of The Beat and I, Jimmy Aquino of Comic News Insider, started back in late March, covering films, TV, comics, etc. I am Jimmy Aquino of Comic News Insider, the weekly podcast covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture.
And I'm Heidi McDonald. I'm the editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com, the news site of comics culture.
And two new people to our panel. We have this week is our friends, of Anthony Delcole, who's a writer of comics and all sorts of other stuff. What's up, Anthony?
Hello, I'm so honored to be on this episode, especially since we're talking about one of my favorite film of all time.
That's right. Okay, that's enough time. Okay, so and then my other friend Erin Crosby's with us, who is like me, a recovering musical theater performer, but you still perform it. Amazing singer, also owns her own company and sorts of other stuff. Amazing chef and baker as well. Welcome, Erin. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here and again talk about one of the best movies ever made, let alone one of my favorite movies ever made.
So we're going to be talking It's a Wonderful Life, the 1946 Frank Capra film, classic film, with a $3.18 million budget, but only did $3.3 million at the box office. Capra and Stewart both say it's their favorite film. Stewart does say Harvey was his favorite role, but It's a Wonderful Life was his favorite film. It's based on the story The Greatest Gift by Philip Van Doren Stern, who tried to sell this story to no avail. So he sent it out as it's one of those long Christmas letters you dread getting, but it was a 28-page pamphlet he sent out. They were like, "Oh, Jesus, Philip, come on, dude."
So self-publisher.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So he sent it out as a long-form Christmas letter, 200 copies. And it's similar idea. George Pratt instead of George Bailey starts at the bridge. Clarence changes the world to the unborn. It's this whole idea, he meets Mary and all sorts of stuff. So lots of differences, but similarities as well. A studio bought it for $10,000 before Capra got involved, went through mini scripts. There was at one point a Good and Bad George, where George saw himself turn into a Potter-like character, and there was a fight on the bridge between the two of them. Glad we didn't see that one. Some controversy on how it was rewritten by Capra and others, causing some bad blood and fights over who was credited. And as we know, it's not a hit by any standards. The only Oscar it won was the technical one for the beautiful use of snow, because they used to use cornflakes, but it made too much and painted them white, and it made too much sound. So they came up with this idea of foam and soap. And it was glorious because, boy, does it snow in some of those scenes. But then it sort of faded into cinematic history because it didn't do very well until 1974. When a clerical error happened and somebody didn't really secure the rights, and every TV station in the world started playing it. And when cable happened in the 70s, they played it multiple times a year, constantly, different channels. So let's get into how we first saw it. That's how I first saw it, was because it showed on TV multiple times a year as a kid. I'm old. And my mom liked the film, let's check it out. And I loved it. And it would literally be on probably 3 times.
Yeah, right.
So we would make bets. My friends and my best friend Ted and my brothers and other people and I would what scene is it going to be on in the next channel? We would switch and see if we could, like that. It was like, oh, sometimes we were right.
It's a Wonderful Life roulette.
Yeah, it really was. But I would watch it multiple times a year, and because when it came out on VHS and then DVD, I watch it in June. I watch it not just I watched it 3 times this week. I probably watch it anywhere from 5 to 10 times a year. So I've seen it probably over 100 times. But that's when I first started. Well, I was pretty young, probably 10 years old, maybe even younger when I first saw it. They even show it at theaters, and I go every year to the IFC Center downtown. And even Donna Reed's daughter shows up at some of the screenings.
Oh.
Reads little letters that her mom got during the war about it or about the film. Guess what her daughter's name is?
Donna.
Mary.
That's
no.
her. Yeah, it is. So it's awesome. I could do a TED talk on this film, as I said. But you guys, when did you first see it?
So I don't remember when this movie first entered my life. I'm a little older than Jimmy even. So, but in my
by a year or 2.
Yeah, but in my family, we loved, old movies. I mean, this movie wasn't that old when I was born. But older movies. We love Frank Capra. He's God in my household. So I'm sure we watched it many times. And of course, during the period when it was on every channel all the time during Christmas, same as you, Jimmy, we would flip around and see it. As I've mentioned several times on here, my stepfather's in the business. He's a screenwriter, show writer. He produced Golden Girls for a while.
Yeah.
One of the funniest people
Wow.
I've ever met.
Yeah, that's pretty
I must
great,
say
right?
that. But anyway, and he loves old movies. When I go home for Christmas, Turner Movie Classics is pretty much the only thing that's ever on.
Yeah.
So, I've seen it multiple times, but I will say I hadn't seen it in a long time. It is a perfect movie, and it's kind of in my memory. So I watched it again to do this, and I don't love it as much as you guys do. Like, it's not a part of my life the way it is for you guys.
The Zoom call has ended.
Yes, I know. And it's not that I don't, recognize the fact that it's a freaking masterpiece and it is one of the greatest movies ever made. And I love Frank Capra, I love Jimmy Stewart, I love Donna Reed. I mean, everything about it. It's just, it isn't one of those movies. It never, I don't know. It's just not on.
I get it. No, it's not everyone.
Yeah, my
favorite,
Christmas.
sure.
I have the two Christmas for me is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Sure.
And probably A Christmas Story is the one.
Yeah.
That really
Well,
gets me.
technically, this isn't a Christmas movie.
That's
Controversial.
yes.
But it's really not. But anyway,
Yes.
just the last act.
Yeah.
Really not much. Like most of it doesn't take place at Christmas. So anyway.
That's right. Yeah. And actually that's funny because I do remember probably when it aired during its ubiquity that we watched it, and I had not seen it since I was a kid, so I didn't remember anything of it. And I was like, oh, it's not a Christmas movie, it's a story of George Bailey and his life, and
Guy wants to kill himself. Yeah.
Mary's life. It's a story about American life and small towns and the fabric of our world, really. So but Christmas is a great tie-in. It wouldn't have been the same if it was Easter.
Yes.
Suppose he was coming back with that Easter ham.
Yeah. I have no problem with it being associated with Christmas, of course.
Yeah,
I love it.
absolutely.
Yeah. Erin, how about you?
Well, growing up in a family where my grandparents loved being teenagers and kids during the 40s. So they shoved every bit of film, music, all of it down my throat from the time I was born. And I'm so glad that they did because, again, I probably started watching it like 4 or 5 years old was probably the first time.
Nice.
And probably even before it was on television all the time. I'm sure at that point, my grandparents had a VHS that we were probably, that they recorded off the television that we would probably just watch constantly. But again, during, all the 80s, it was on all the time.
Yeah.
So I think I saw it probably every time it was on.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
I understood why kids my own age didn't like it. I was like, what do you mean you don't watch that movie?
For sure.
I realize now, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a pretty heavy subject matter for most 8-year-olds. Like,
yeah. For sure, it really is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you're talking about, Turner Classic Movies. For me, it was AMC when it was American Movie Classics.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget when I finally got my first TV. It was, a little 12-inch black and white bunny ear, but I could get American Movie Classics, and I would sleep through my first 2 periods of school almost every day because I stayed up till 2 or 3 in the morning just watching.
Old films. Yep.
Oh,
Right
yeah.
Nice.
I love that.
Yeah.
Nice. Anthony, how about you?
Well, first of all, much like yourself, Jimmy, I know this came up in conversation about a month ago. This is my favorite movie of all time. And much like Heidi, I'm a huge fan of Frank Capra. When people ask me who my favorite filmmaker of all time, it's gotta be Frank Capra. It's a Wonderful Life by far. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Mr. Deeds Goes to Town.
Oh God, yes.
But yeah, I know to me, he's just the greatest filmmaker and the greatest storyteller. Other than William Shakespeare, of course.
Yeah.
But no, for myself,
Billy Shakes, yes.
Billy Shakes.
We'll give you that.
Billy Bob Shakes. No, my first exposure was to It's a Wonderful Life was back in high school. My parents weren't really into black and white movies. No one. I grew up in small town Canada, a place called Porcupine, which
Porcupine.
I love that.
Talk about that. Thank you. Yes, I know. I'll talk about that in a moment. But I at one point I just started to watch all these classic movies, and I always heard all these things about It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Christmas classic. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, it seems like it's going to be one of those sentimental, like, pappy things.
Capricorn.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I watched it and I was blown away. I was blown away by it. I just remember immediately just, and I mean, it sounds like most of us, well, actually, I mean, all of us are artists here. And one of the things we strive to do in our art or in our writing or whatever it is to move people, not just entertain and enlighten them, but also inspire them. And this was a film that really inspired me. I mean, again, people have had far worse childhood. But I mean, like when I was growing up, like I was very type A. If I got an A, I wouldn't be satisfied, because I wanted an A plus. Like everything.
One of
like,
those nerds.
That wasn't me.
Yeah.
I got so stressed out about everything. Like I would stay up late working on schoolwork. Like everything was about I need to succeed. I need to succeed. I need to succeed. I need to succeed. And then I watched this movie and I thought about it and the themes in it, where like no man was born to be a failure who has friends. It just made me realize, there's more to life than just succeeding at school or at a career or something like that. So it is kind of corny to say that this movie actually did sort of change my life.
Yeah.
In a small way. Yes,
absolutely.
I know. And then a few years later, I was very honored. Well, not honored, actually. I actually instigated this. So in my final year of high school, I signed up to do like a theater class. And so I convinced the teacher to do a stage production of It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
And yes, I actually starred as George Bailey.
Oh, wow.
Production. Yeah, so that's why I know all
Sentimental hogwash.
Sentimental hogwash. No, doggone it. You sit around here and you spin your little webs and you think the whole world revolves around you and your money. Well, it doesn't, Mr. Platter. In the
Here
whole
we
vast
go.
configuration, you're nothing but a scurvy little spider. And he goes for you too.
You too.
Oh my God.
Too.
I am so overmatched on this.
Nice.
So I have, I have every, I know the film inside out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it really related to me as well. Also because, I mean, like I said, I grew up in a small town and I really related to George Bailey. I mean, here's someone who, small town Bedford Falls, just wanted to get away from it. I was growing up in Porcupine. I'm just like, I want to get to the big city. I want to get somewhere bigger and I want to accomplish all these things. Not just one wish, marry a whole hatful. I know what I want to do tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. I'm shaking the dust of this criminal town. I'm going to see the world.
I agree with, in high school, I remember who became my best friend, this guy named Ted. We're still really close. We reconnected about 10 years ago. One day during drama class in 11th grade, he did the boardroom scene by himself, playing every character, just had little placards to say their name. I was the only one in class going, oh my God, this is genius. Why is no one paying attention to this? He did the voices. And we were friends before that, but after that, I'm like, we're gonna be buds.
That's a kindred spirit.
Really,
That's a kindred spirit.
Yeah.
But Jimmy, did he get the little squeak in his voice? I know very well.
Oh yeah,
you're talking about something you can't get your fingers.
Yeah.
It's
That's gone. Actually, it's what it is. Yeah, he's got a great impression. But when I say I'm obsessed, like
sorry guys, my cat.
Nerds. It's all right. We're all comic nerds, I love Batman, I love Star Wars, I have tattoos, but if I was a billionaire, I would have an It's a Wonderful Life room. I have sitting by me a ton of
showing off. Now you're showing
the
off.
cookbook. You got to try the Ruth Dakin bacon wraps. I have trivia books. I have memorabilia books. I have The Greatest Gift, the original story. I have, this book is actually really, really good. If you guys can get it, it's scene by scene guide to the classic film. If you can, not too shiny there. It's try and see that. The Essential It's a Wonderful Life, a scene by scene guide by Michael William. This really breaks it down. Like it's an intensive study of the film with not just trivia, but they did interviews. They dug deep.
Wow.
Also, I've got coloring books. Did you know they came out with a card set back in the day?
You told me about this a month ago.
I have the complete card set.
What? Oh my God!
Back in the 90s,
who put that out? Who put it out? Is it?
I have the no
Skybox.
Yeah, I think it's Skybox. I think you're right. Yeah, I still have the I actually bought a new set recently because you can buy a whole box like I found on eBay. But yeah, I have ornaments. I put my Christmas decoration. I have some ornaments. I have a snow globe. I have a mask. It's Wonderful Life mask.
What?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with this film. This is my
Okay,
favorite film
so
ever.
hold on. Co-host has to
Mhm.
break in here.
Mhm.
So wait, I have two questions. First
Yes.
off, well, for Anthony, where is Porcupine? What province is it in?
Is it near?
Yeah.
Porcupine's in Ontario, so basically,
Oh, it is in
if you're-
Ontario. So
Yeah,
is it-
if you're in Toronto, drive straight north for about 10
Got
hours,
it.
and you'll find Porcupine. It's a suburb of Timmins, and Timmins.
It's
is
first
known
okay.
for-
first you pass Raccoon, then you go to Porcupine, and then
Yeah, then Chipmunk.
Right, yeah, I thought so. So, yeah.
Okay,
thought so,
so
yeah.
well, I want to get back to that because obviously small town life, mid-century industrialism is a big theme of this film. So we'll get back to that. All right, so Jimmy, we have to get to the essential question, and what Anthony just said is made it super clear. So for you though, why does this movie mean
Okay,
so
I was going to get into it
much
later,
to
but I'll get into it now.
Yeah.
But also I wanted to add to the whole thing about all the It's a Wonderful Life memorabilia and paraphernalia. If someone they came out with a village years ago with it's really expensive buying the individual pieces now. Someone wants to buy them all off of eBay for me, please do. And also, why hasn't Funko made any
I know, right?
figures yet?
Hello.
They have the most obscure figures. They haven't made this yet. Anyway, so this film, Anthony said it changed his life. This film saves my life. It's a film about a guy who, who, like Anthony was saying, who does good, tries so hard to do good, and feels like he just can't get ahead and can't get a break to the point of where he wants to kill himself and thinks it's better off that way. And as many people know, my friends know, I've been dealing with my mental health and depression for years now, and where I've certainly thought of this many times in my life, where I feel like, oh, I don't make a difference. No one cares. Why should I even try anymore? You know, have I made a difference in anyone's life? And this film really spoke to me because at the end, obviously, there's a sliver of hope that he finds, and he realizes, like Anthony said, that he did make a difference. And that gives me hope because if I made a difference in one person's life, then that's enough. So that's why I'm so sorry. Weepy Jimmy again. Sorry.
No.
It saves my life. I watch it multiple times a year, and not to be dramatic, it saves my life, but I mean, in a sense, it does. And whenever I feel really down, I'll put it on, and it reminds me of that hope, and that I'm loved, and that I've made a little bit of a difference in this world. So sorry, I got so serious.
Everybody
Sorry.
hug. Everybody hug. Okay. Hug through Zoom
Anyway.
hug.
Here's to Jimmy, the richest
Yeah,
man
to
on
Jimmy.
the Zoom call.
Yeah, the richest man. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jimmy.
Anyway, what about you guys? How does it mean to you?
Well,
You're like,
no.
I just like it. It's fun. Whatever.
Well, no, but I mean, obviously, that's a huge, it is a huge part of this. And I mean, the themes of it remind me of Our Town by Thornton Wilder.
Yeah. Oh God, I love that.
Okay.
Play.
And I'm not sure that was written a long time before, but I mean, they are thematically very similar. I had to read that in high school.
Yeah,
right?
I did that show in high school.
Right. And I had to read it in high school. I'm not a thespian like you guys, but but I will say, you know what, when I read that book, or when I read that play, that had a similar effect on me, where she's, Emily has the same, don't they ever realize how wonderful life is? And the angel in Our Town says, well, maybe a few people like saints and poets, and like, okay, I think we all can realize it. But yeah, actually, you know what? Like, that theme had a super powerful effect on my life as well. So we all, this theme it's super important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just really is that desperation and that hopelessness you feel, which we all do, especially nowadays. I know it's been exacerbated by the pandemic and elections and all these other stuff going on.
I mean, for me, rewatching this movie just last night, having being in the year of COVID and elections, and obviously the last few years what's been going on, but also I think being the age that I am now, which is so different for me. I found myself being weepy and emotional in places I had never.
Yeah.
And I know this movie by heart, but I found myself being like finding new beats and new moments
Nice.
and new words that I had not heard the same way before. And I was really struck by that. I was like, oh God, thank God I'm home alone watching this because I look like a mess. Like, as if I'd never seen it before, you know?
Right. Oh, that's so great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really touches on so many levels, you know, because it is even Capra was like, I think this is my greatest film I've ever made. And I'm so glad it found an audience years later. I mean, who knows? I probably would have discovered it, you know, had it never aired like it did so much eventually. But the fact that, you know, there was that 20-year lapse because in 94 they finally like, wait a minute, let's get these rights pulled in. They only show it like once a year now. But that 20-year lapse like created this whole giant new, you know, fan base, and like, you know, made it become people start, oh wow, this is a great film, and it's like listed on all the top films and all the lists, and if not number one, it's number 2 or 3, you know.
Yeah. Well,
sorry.
Oh no, go on.
I was going to ask a quick question because last night when I watched it, because we, you know, they have it on Prime, and it was the colorized version.
Well, they have
3 versions on
They
there.
have yes.
They have them all, yeah.
But I found myself kind of longing for the black and white.
Oh.
While I was watching it.
I watch them both because Capra was actually really for the colorized version at first.
Okay.
And he railed against it later, but he had an issue, like there was some issue when they were trying to get it colorized with a company, and I don't know if it was money or somehow he didn't like the way they were doing it. That's when he was like, fuck this, you know, like, and now he hates it, or then he hated it. But at first he was all for it. And I like watching the colorized one. I prefer obviously the black and white, but I like watching the colorized one because you do get to see different nuances and different things. Yeah, the salad's a little too green on the dinner table, but at the other points,
a little bit.
Yeah, you get to see. Other places you're like, oh, that blood really shows up more in back to his ear. You know,
going to say though, this was the color. I think the colorization. This might have been one of the very first films to be colorized, and you know that was
around that time.
Yeah, Ted Turner, who owned Turner Movie Classics.
Yep.
He was the, you know, this TV mogul, and he was the guy who started colorizing. And I think this was, if not the first, then one of the first. And of course, there was a huge outcry among film buffs, film lovers, and historians. And you know, thank God they don't do it anymore. Because I mean, I watched it in black and white. I love black and white films, and you know, there was some studies about how black and white actually seems more real to people in some ways when you watch it, and more real than color, like when you watch a film or something like that. I'm not sure what it is, but I mean, your mind, it's so evocative, and you know, the greatness of Capra's direction and storytelling and everything. I mean, the detail, like it was one of the biggest sets that they had made. You know, I mean, it was a huge
my God,
set.
He made a town.
He built the
town.
Right.
Yeah,
and so you have the complete, you know, immersion in this world. And, you know, I somehow, whether it's like, you know, we automatically imagine the colors of things, that it makes it more, draws us in more. So, and I mean, I just love the values of black and white filmmaking. So.
Yeah, for sure. And like Capra, like he spent a lot on this because it was with RKO. Then he formed his own company, Liberty Films. You see at the very beginning, they only made 2 films because it did not do that well with Liberty Films. But he, you know, he likes to use his crew of people. But he was just coming back from the war like Jimmy Stewart was, and they both were a little nervous about getting back into the game. And even so, Jimmy wasn't, I think he always wanted him, but other like Cary Grant and Henry Ford were up for it. Gene Arthur, Olivia de Havilland, Ginger Rogers were, because he's using Gene and Jimmy several times. Multiple actors were up for Podler, including Vincent Price at one point. But because Barrymore was known for playing Scrooge on the radio every year, they're like, that sounds good. But yeah, he finally decided, you know, I need Jimmy for this film. And
I can't imagine Cary Grant.
Oh, I can't. Neither can I. No, God.
No.
Too proper.
Yeah.
Maybe Gary Cooper, of actors at that time, because I mean he had done.
He did.
Sam, and he did
Sergeant
Mr.
York
Deeds Goes to Town. So I could. Sure. He's probably the only other actor I could think of that could have pulled off that role. But Cary Grant,
I could Cary Grant like, what is it? You what? Marry the moon? My terrible Cary Grant impression. Terrible, but you know. Anyway, but yeah, it's so you got that. And Donna Reed had been working by then, you know, but she wasn't like a star yet. She was up and rising, but this was her biggest thing, and she was only like She was 25 at the time, and Stewart was 38. And they did not even try to age them through the film. That's what I love, because they never age. They look just as fresh faced as
that's kind of part of the magic.
They're like
that's kind of the magic of it, actually.
Yeah.
And high school dance, a bunch of 35-year-olds. I mean, it's great.
And although I will say that Donna Reed's entrance with that close up on her face. And
so beautiful.
She's so beautiful. And it's so,
oh my God.
and I think that's part of, Anthony, you mentioned a few Capra films. I think one of my favorite Capra films, and I haven't seen it in a long time, is You Can't Take It With You.
Yeah.
Which is like, probably his best known film before this was It Happened One Night with Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert.
Popularized the undershirt, yes.
Yes,
that movie.
Yes, and it's a screwball comedy, as they called them in those days. And it won Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Actor. So, Best Director. It's one of the few movies that had ever swept all of that. But Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, Mrs. Smith Goes to Washington, all these films, he was about the everyman, but like
against the system,
against the system, and his care for the characters, his care for obviously he was an actor's director, Horace, but I mean, just his genius at introducing I think that's one of the reasons why you can watch it 100 times too. It's just like every character has their moment, and that's something
like Erin said, you find new things every time almost. It's just great. One fun little thing about Donna Reed, since she was so new, she was from a very small little town. She was playing the girl next door, had that going for her, and grew up on a farm. And the story goes that Barrymore didn't believe it. So he made a bet. He was like, yeah, milk that cow. I'll give you $50. She's like, whatever. Milk, $50. Easiest $50 ever made. And I was like, that's right, Donna Reed. You tell him. For sure. I love it. I love it. So I do want to start at the very beginning and sort of go through it. Heidi, you want to go ahead and open up your
yes, here we go. It's sharing. You can share now. So we're going to share our screens.
Great.
And, let's see if this works.
Let's see if this works. Okay, now you're in my notes. I don't want you to see that.
Screen sharing.
These opening credits alone.
Yes.
I want to know if these still exist, because these are these beautiful the drawings and paintings were like that, and they're look at the pages, they must exist somewhere. I hope they weren't destroyed. Like, look how these just
that's glitter.
Yeah, it really is, but they're like physical pages that are hand drawn or painted, whatever, like that. I think it's just I'm gonna stop the share now. I just want to show you that part there. I'll share again later. Just like, so what a great little start just to see this little little storybook. Like, here we go.
Oh, I know. I was watching it, because I watched it again last night too, Erin, and Jimmy. Same thing. I was just like, and you know what? As I saw those, I started crying. I didn't even. It was just the titles alone. I started to cry, and you're absolutely right. It's like such a magic. I mean, this movie is perfect. I think of all the movies we've talked about on here, probably this and My Neighbor Totoro are the two the two most perfect.
Well, it starts off, and there's no it's certainly not religious undertones, it's religious overtones. It's very it starts off in heaven, basically, although it's like in the stars. And I used to think it was God and Joseph, but it's actually just the head of the angels.
Yeah.
And I found that his
the
name
Archangel Gabriel.
Actually, I think they call him Franklin, because originally the idea was there was going to be Benjamin Franklin involved somehow. And it's this whole thing, Benjamin Franklin. They scrapped that idea, but I think they still named the angel Franklin. And then Joseph, who I'm assuming is the Joseph of, Jesus' dad, And so the two of them, you just see these stars, and what a weird beginning. You think no people, you just see these blinking stars and then voiceovers. And then we meet Clarence, his voice. And was it me, or was Joseph a dick to Clarence the whole time?
Yes, the intelligence of a rabbit, but the faith of a child.
Yeah. You passed him up right along.
been
like
200 years and they won't get on his damn wings.
I know, he's such a jerk to him. He's so rude.
He has such a kind heart. What
I
did
know.
he do that messed up so bad
I
that he
know.
couldn't get his wings?
Like, God, Joseph, take it easy. I get it. Whatever. I know the Immaculate Conception you're still mad about, but come on, calm down, dude. How many girls have pulled that one on you, buddy? But yeah, it's a great thing where you see, and then we get into the story of young George, which is great. So we get these young, thankfully it's not James Stewart playing 12 years old, 10 years old, but
well, he could have. He could have.
Like,
He could've.
But it's great. And we get, that opening scene of them sliding down, and we immediately meet some of the characters you see throughout the film. Sam Hee-Haw, Wainwright, the entire, he's the only one. I think Mary and James and Jimmy Stewart, George do it once, but he's the only one that through. I think that's probably on his deathbed. He's like, Hee-Haw, dude, let it go, calm down. There was Marty and of course his little brother, and that original scene was actually different too. Anthony, you may know this. This story about it was supposed to be they're going to be ice skating, and it was on Potter's property.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And the puck, and they shoot a puck, and it goes to his property, so they go to get it, and he's pissed off. So he's watching the, hey, damn kids, I hate him, and so he sends attack dogs on them, and that's how Harry falls in the ice. But they decided to change it because we don't want to set that up too much. Like, we don't want a total revenge story against Potter.
Yeah.
The story about, which I think was a smarter decision. But yeah, so that's why we learned straight early. We get a character thing that happens with George. Loses his hearing in one ear because he falls in the cold, or he jumps in the cold ice to save his brother. But yeah, it's immediately, and then you still have the voiceovers of Joseph and Clarence just sort of observing it all, of his life, of what's going on. And I thought that was a really great start to see sort of this young George and how he comes to be, his influence of his father. You meet Potter early. You meet young Mary and they even establish young Violet as a floozy when she's young.
Oh, I love the scene.
Right away.
So
you like every boy. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, right. I liked that
Love
they weren't slut shaming her. Right? Like she was right. That's what's wrong with that? It's like, yeah, she was.
Mary was just jealous. She was just
but oh my God, that scene in the soda shop. Well, first off, so you guys, again, I'm not as immersed in it as you are, and I mean, there are some things in here. I do have some questions that I want the panel to answer. But first off, child labor.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
That's an after-school job. Whatever.
Yeah, after-school job is
delivering drugs.
He's running the entire
place. He's a drug runner,
serving up coconut. I mean, would you let
coconut after she said she doesn't like coconut?
I know.
Gave her a lot of coconut.
There you go.
Would you let a 12-year-old run an ice cream parlor?
Well, this is George Balin. He was born old. So
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I mean, you see that all the time where usually a family business, you'll see like kids working behind the counter or making sandwiches or like that. You're like, all right.
But I just have to say the soda shop is, this is a real part, I don't know. Was there one that survived in Porcupine? Because
soda shop, there is a soda shop that's been around for a while now, but not that old school kind. No.
You're right, because my family lives in Maine, and in Damariscotta, Maine, there was a soda shop for a long time, up until probably about 10, 15. Well, I mean, it's still there. It just doesn't have the soda, doesn't have the actual counter. But I mean, you could see these soda counters, and this, it survives in Archie, Archie comics.
Yep.
I mean, this is as mid-century American life as you get, the soda shop. I mean, and that's one of the things, I guess, for younger people when they watch it, it's like, these are like, everything in this movie is like an archetype. Sledding. I mean, I went sledding as a kid. That was the most exciting freaking thing you could do, was go sledding, right?
Florida, so we didn't have that.
Yeah, so you did. Yeah. But I mean, everything is an archetype, but it's important to remember, it's not, I mean, this is actually, the soda shop was where it all happened.
Yeah. when George was such a boy, like I love to see like just where Violet's like, help me down, help you down. It's like, and Mary just smiles. She's like, and then like when he's like,
My favorite.
Say brainless, don't like calls her brainless. Like,
brainless. Don't you know where coconuts
come from?
So, no, I'm glad you pointed that out, Jimmy, because I mean I think what they really do well in the first like 10 minutes or so where we introduce the characters. First of all, in that scene in the water or on the ice, you know, all of a sudden George Bailey becomes a hero. Like he's the first one there to save his brother. He sacrifices the hearing in one ear to do it, so he's a hero. And then in the scene at the soda shop, like, you know, you can tell he's sort of cocky. Like he's got a bit of arrogance to him. He's not perfect. He's not like
I've been nominated for a membership of the National Geographic Society.
Exactly, my God, the National Geographic.
Which your mom probably nominated you, so calm down, all right?
Yeah.
But I mean that what they do so well is they're setting up a really like a three-dimensional, like a real person. He's a real person where he's got some great traits and then he's got some negative traits. Right? Yeah. You know, he is sort of arrogant. He sort of looks down on some people, or like he can be rough or brisk with some people. And I mean, that's why I love that scene. It really
that moment where he finds that moment he finds the Western Union.
Yeah.
What normal 12-year-old would look at that? But right away he knew how to approach Mr. Gower. And
that was great.
And that changed everything.
Yeah, his tone changed everything. He was very like loving because he cares for this man. Like, you know, he's clearly worked there for a while and thinks of him as probably as like an uncle, you know, or a second father figure. But, you know, of course, loves his dad. But he's conflicted on what to do because, you know, everyone knows like Gower's the story goes H.B. Warner, who played Gower, was actually drunk for that scene. Like they on purpose got drunk. Yeah, supposedly on purpose. He's like, I want to get drunk for this scene and get it. But he's like, he was of course famous for playing Jesus in King of Kings and Cecil B. DeMille film. He's an amazing actor, so he was apparently pretty sauced in that film, in that scene. So he accidentally puts poison in the capsule for the kid with diphtheria, which diphtheria is no joke, you know. And you look it up, it's like pretty bad. So George isn't sure what to do. Goes to his father. That's where we meet Harry fuckboy Potter, Harry F. Potter, and not Harry, sorry, Henry F. Potter, and we immediately he's just like, okay, yeah, this is a bad guy. Just his demeanor. I mean, the Barrymores, that entire family is such a great acting lineage, and all the way to Drew, who I love, and he is so great. He's even like, you know, he's a jerk right in front of, you know, the kid to his father. And like George like stands up for his dad, even pushes, you know, Potter at one point. Don't let him talk to you that way, Pop, you know, and let me say that about you. And then if you listen closely after he leaves, you can hear even the dad going like, you humiliated me in front of my son. And it's like, yeah, and Potter's like, whatever, I don't, you know, it's like doesn't care about anything. So we get a little note of what's to come. Then we go back to the drugstore, and this is a weird time thing, which whatever, it's film, and drunk ass H.B. Warner, as you know, as Gower's like, it's been there an hour ago, you know, an hour, yet. One good thing, Mary in that hour scraped all the coconut off her ice cream. She's like, this ice cream bullshit. Coconut bullshit. But it was still like a full bowl of not even like melted ice cream. That's some cold ice cream.
She just helped herself to more. Come on.
Or that, or Gower just was too drunk and it was actually probably 5 minutes and not an hour, you know. But I thought that was funny. But yeah, he comes back and he starts smacking him around and the ear starts bleeding, you know, and then once he realizes that he did put poison in, he sobers up, and Warner, so God, that look he gives to the camera, like we're just like, what he realizes what he's done, and what a sweet scene between them two. And like Anthony was saying, you learn right away George is a caring person, and it's like, I'm never going to tell anybody this, ever. Like your secret is with me. You made a mistake. I'm not gonna like in today's world, I'm not gonna cancel you right away for it. You know, I mean, you could have killed a kid, but still, it's like. But, you know, you made a mistake. Yeah. We caught it in time. You know, I love you. You're like an uncle to me, whatever. Yeah. This is between us. And the angels, like, yeah, he never said anything. And I'm like, well, that's helps, like Anthony said, helps set up his character for the future. And then speaking of the future, we immediately skip ahead to about 10 years where George, I guess, is about 22. I want a big one. And that great freeze frame. And like Clarence is so great because he's like, oh, that kid gets
like
left
George
around back
Bailey.
there. But that's great. So we immediately go back and like, you immediately accept that, okay, Jamie Stewart's 22 here. We don't care, and go right into it. And then his little walk through town, we meet more characters. We meet Bert and Ernie. Bert the cop, Ernie the cab driver, and much to many people's chagrin, know the Sesame Street characters.
It's not a crossover.
Not named after them. People at Sesame Street, it's just a coincidence. We did not. It's not a thing. They even make fun of it in like this Elmo Christmas special from a few years ago, where the characters are walking by a TV and it's playing. Like, did they just say our names? And it's so great. It's really cute. Yeah. So we meet them and it's really cool. Oh, Bert and Ernie, they're all buddies. And then the greatest entrance in cinematic history happens. Gloria Graham, I love her so much, enters as Violet Bick.
Yeah.
And heads turn on screen, heads turn off screen. That entrance is genius. I love it so much. Like when she first appeared, like I love Donna Reed, but I was like, even young, I was like, oh, Violet Bick. Oh my God. I was like, oh.
Oh my God, her clothes.
The best.
Oh, like
tailored perfectly
just
to
like,
her body.
Yeah,
she
but
had great wardrobe.
And I mean, again, I love this character in that, she's not
owns it.
The good girl. She owns it. Gloria Graham is fantastic, and that she owns it. But she's not, it's not portrayed as, what a bad, evil, sexually active person.
Yeah.
It's so bad that it's more like, I think that what we learn about Bedford Falls is that it takes all kinds.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. And I love that, like, besides Bert, Ernie, and George ogling, as she crosses the street, this old dude turns and looks at her, and we get a literal Awooga horn. Is the best.
Great.
The best. And she just doesn't turn around and carries on. She's like, I know I'm hot shit. What's up? And and then to the sexual innuendos, of course, where Ernie's like, how would you like to? Yes. And then that doesn't even end there. Bert suddenly is like, I gotta go see the wife.
I gotta go see what the wife is doing.
But then they save it kind of with Ernie going, oh, family man. Like, well done, Capra, well done. Oh, but like that's what he's so good at. Like we also see, we met Uncle Billy, and like it's a family business. If you don't know, Tilly and Eustace are cousins. We're not sure who's father. Like Uncle Billy's not their father because they call him Uncle also, but they're cousins in it. So we met them earlier. Then we see them out the window. So we get all these great little characters we meet again, and you get a hint of them, and their character. And that's what's so great. That's a testament to the writing and the actors themselves.
And Uncle Billy owns a crow. I mean, I love that they just had the crow.
He has 7 or 8 animals.
And a squirrel.
In the later scene, there's an owl. There's an owl. There's a bird. There's a hamster. Yeah. Look in that scene. There's a weirdly consolatory squirrel. Like that was a well trained. That squirrel just basically gave him a hug. Was like, hey, buddy.
Squirrels. I've said so many times. Here in New York,
raven,
emotionally support squirrel.
Never. You don't make pets of squirrels except Uncle Billy. He was.
And the raven has a name. Guess what the raven's name is? And they say it in the film. Jimmy Stewart says it. It's
Poe?
Jimmy. It's Jimmy.
Oh, it's Jimmy.
Because when he's hopping over the desk after the run, he's like, says like, watch out, Jimmy. And that's a crow that Capra's used in his films. The same crow they used.
Yeah, it was his emotional support crow.
Yeah, this his.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, I mean, not just the animals, but I mean, how we're probably like 20 minutes in here, and we've already met, I don't know, at least 12, 14 characters.
Yeah.
And there's a small little trait. So like Uncle Billy, the first time we meet him, like he's like, oh, don't, the bank examiner's call. He's like, oh, bank examiner. Like, I mean, just
close up.
Yeah. So I mean, like there's a small little trait or something about them. Like within 5 seconds, without 10 seconds, you go, oh yeah, so that's Violet Bick. Oh, that's Uncle Billy. Like, and they'll play it off along the way. Like for that, and that's why what's great about it when you end it, you feel like everyone in Bedford Falls. Like there's 20, 25 actors, and it's so hard in the span of 2 hours to be able to introduce that number of characters and
remember them,
exactly, and remember them. So at the end, when they're all together, you're like, oh, like this is a family, this is a community. And I mean,
nobody's a throwaway. Nobody's the throwaway character that kind of pops in, has like a ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba and leaves.
Yeah.
It's like they all have purpose and meaning in the life. Yeah.
But that's the thing, like with Uncle Billy, like we do establish his forgetfulness. You're like, okay, you're a building and loans company. I get your family business, but you want a guy who forgets shit.
So wait a minute.
Money?
So you guys, I gotta jump. Okay, so I had two major questions about this. Okay, and this is the first one. This was a shitty bank. How on
it's
earth?
A family-run bank.
But no, how on earth did this company? I mean, Potter was trying to destroy it, but I mean, none of the people who are running this bank are in any way equipped to run a financial institution.
I think Eustace and Tilly are running that place. Like Eustace is the cousin that's in like always counting the money. He's smart. He knows what's up. And Tilly, of course, has an idea. Any good receptionist, as she played in many films, knows what's going on in the entire place. So they were running the place. They knew they had to run it. They were running it when Peter Bailey was still alive, the dad, but it was a family business, and like. Okay, great. Like Eustace should have been Uncle Billy's role. Like you should have given Uncle Billy like this, like sort of like, oh, let's give crazy Uncle Billy like a little job in the corner here. He can fold papers or something like that.
Fold $8,000. Like
fucking Uncle Billy.
Got $8,000 here. Just let Billy could take care of it.
Lovable, but god damn it, Uncle Billy.
If there's one thing that makes this movie a fantasy, it's not the guardian angels. Because maybe we do have guardian angels.
Yeah.
It's Uncle Billy running a bank.
Yeah. That's how did that last so long?
What?
It's a very good question. But I mean, and they talk about it. Like, I mean, if Peter Bailey left and Jimmy and George Bailey, left for college, it would have shut down. Like, I mean, like Peter Bailey was the one that kept it alive. And when he left, it would have gone bankrupt. Like, it would have gone, it would have gone insolvent. So that's why George Bailey had to do that.
Because
But you're right. And I mean, and like the bank examiner or whatever, like no skin off my nose, Mr. Potter.
Mr. Potter,
But I mean, he's the one that's like, look, they're charging like the rents that they're charging are so low. The more like I'm sure the interest rates they're charging on the mortgages are so low.
Yeah.
Like I mean, but I mean, George Bailey was able to kind of balance everything. He's like, look, I mean, well, I'm not making that much money, but I gotta help these people out. So
and they weren't making that much money on purpose.
And that's a nonprofit. In some sense, he was almost running a nonprofit.
Yeah,
that makes
that's
sense.
Good. Yeah, for sure.
All right,
for sure. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah,
I'll buy that.
Yeah. So we get to
okay, Bob. Question.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No. I'm just saying. Marked off. Answered.
Mm-hmm. So you can remove the piece of string that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Was it a good wedding? But yeah, so we get to the little family dinner. We meet Annie, the housekeeper and keeper, and then Harry again, and he's graduating high school again. He's probably 24 in real life, I think, and he's graduating high school. And they're going to the big dance and trying to talk George into going, oh, all those kids. I'm like, well, you're speaking from the truth there, 38-year-old. And he's like, yeah, with all those kids there. So we get to the dance, and it's the glorious dance. And then it's a real, people were confused, that actually still exists to this day, the Beverly Hills High School. That's an actual pool that they designed way back then before that movie. And it actually does open up. And so many great things happen at this dance. We meet Mary, that immediate, and then what's even better is I remember as a kid, I recognize that voice right away talking to her. I'm like, that fucking sounds familiar. I'm like, that's fucking Alfalfa from our gang. Yeah. Totally hitting her up and trying to work her. And then I got tripped and I got fourth place. So it's
he was in the other holiday Christmas movie, White Christmas. He was in a non-speaking role. He was the picture of the brother.
That's right. Yes.
Oh, they're like, oh yeah, he always was a good-looking kid.
Yeah. He didn't do too well after our gang. He got little bit parts here and there in films, and then had a very unfortunate end. Do you know what happened to him? He got involved in some sort of gambling thing, and
No.
was like, he went to go collect on a debt and got shot.
So I
Yeah.
think Alfalfa went to Pottersville.
Yeah, he did.
He went to
Alfalfa did.
Pottersville.
He did, and
Pottersfield.
he did not.
The darkest timeline, yeah.
And he
Yes,
did
in the
not.
darkest
And
timeline.
he did not do well.
Yeah,
And
one
he
of
did-
those
he- and he
honky
does-
tonks. Unfortunately, I mean, it's really tragic though.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of our gang came
Yeah.
to untimely ends, except Spanky McFarlane. My
Yeah.
family name is McFarlane, so
Oh,
you know.
nice. Yeah, and he does such a great alfalfism too, because he goes to take Mary for the dance. George does. And he's like, "Hey, this is my dance." And then he's like, "Why don't you stop annoying people?" "Well, I'm sorry." Hey, I'm like, that's such an alfalfa-ism. I'm like, so great.
And he looks like a Norman Rockwell.
Yeah,
Right?
It
Yes.
does. And once again, poor Violet. Like before that, Violet, has always had her eyes on George because he's the elusive one, and goes over and like, "Don't ever dance, don't ever dance." The whole little dance card thing they used to do back in the day, and is there. Then Marty can like, "Come dance with my kid sister," and you watch Violet during that scene. She's just like, "Fucking Marty, are you serious?" I'm like, I'm almost had him, and now your damn sister. And then, like Heidi said earlier, that shot of seeing Mary's face, you're like, oh, and then George seeing her too, having the same reaction. It's so great. Watch it, but I love when Marty kicks her over, and Marty's just like, "Yeah, remember his kid sister Mary? All right, bye." It just bounces.
Yeah.
He just takes off. I'm like, well, I guess that's how you do it. And we get a great little dance sequence, of course. And then I know George had no hearing in one ear, but to be able to notice that
The floor is open.
It's like I get you guys were lost in each other's eyes, but but come on. But that was great. And there's another little trivia thing there too. When they dive in, that's them in there first, but then they switch to stunt doubles because people are like, you could see Jimmy Stewart's toupee. That's not Jimmy Stewart. That's a stunt double.
Oh.
Because you do see this flapping thing. That's not him. That's a stunt double. Stewart had his hair. He was good. But yeah, it's what a great scene. What a great scene.
But then comes this next magical scene.
Buffalo Gals, won't you come out tonight? Come on, Erin. Come out tonight. Come out tonight. Buffalo Gals, won't you come out and dance by the light
of the moon.
Hot dog.
Hot dog. And yeah,
dog.
so he's in this oversized football uniform. She's in a robe, and I'm assuming pretty naked underneath. I'm gonna assume she still has underwear on, but I don't know. It's like it's suggested maybe not later on. And that sets up another thing, the Granville house, which is great. So they throw a rock. George wants to, because he make a wish in the Granville house, and Mary doesn't want to because she loves the house. "I want to live in there." He's like, "Why? It's a piece of crap." And again, foreshadowing. And then apparently she either played ball or just had a really good arm, because that's her really throwing, and she nails it. She's like, nails the winner. Like, yeah, Donna Reed, milk the cow, throw a rock, hell yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, also, as we learn later on, I mean, Mary Bailey is a master carpenter also.
Yeah.
So 'cause she fixes that
She
shit
built
up.
that house herself. Yeah.
Okay.
She started and flipped this house.
Yeah, right.
This house show. She's great. And that's such a sweet scene, because it's just watching them fall in love and court each other in a sense, and just sort of flirt around the obvious. Even George tries to lean in for the kiss, and she's still like, not ready. Buffalo Gals. And then the creepy dude who's watching them the whole time.
Creepy dude on porch.
Like, watch you kiss her. And, it's like, oh my god. And what's funny about it, because so then they, the robe accidentally comes off. She hides in the hydrangea bushes, and he's still flirting and playing. I'm like, George, you did that a little too long. Give her a robe back. All right, calm down. And
that was George
a little long.
Yeah, 12-year-old George came back. I'm a little
yeah,
bit
he's
of
being
a
a little flirty.
a little
like,
bit of a
calm down. But then, of course, Uncle Billy and Harry arrive saying that their dad had a heart attack. And of course,
stroke.
Stroke. And you see Mary's eyes from the bushes, so concerned, obviously.
But I mean, but this is really the major theme of the film right now, because we've seen in the scene in the soda shop,
Mhm.
George talking about where the coconut comes from. I mean, he
Mhm.
has this thirst to see the world.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that we've learned about George, is that he doesn't want to be stuck in this little town.
Mhm.
He wants to see the world, and it's been brought back and forth. And he didn't want to go to the dance because the next day he's leaving to go to Europe. But
this is still the same day where he got the suitcase and everything.
And the beauty of the pacing of this film is like literally every time George is on the precipice of achieving his own personal dream, like right that same day, wedding day, let's have a run on the bank, Christmas Eve, let's audit the bank. I mean, it's like every time there's this day, it's not even like
a celebration.
Celebration.
It's snatched from him.
Yeah, we're skipping past the one thing that happened right before the dance was the beautiful scene with his father.
Oh, at the dinner table. Yeah.
Which ends up being basically his father giving him the best advice of his life of how to, which George ends up taking and ending up doing. Basically, is understanding who his father is, why he does what he does, the love that his father has, and ends up having this really beautiful, almost goodbye last moment with his father. And you don't even know that at the time.
Yeah, that really is really great. Like the actor playing the dad, like you see him heartbroken because he does. I thought it was a little unfair that he's like asking George to stay again, but Samuel S. Hines was the actor, and but then he sees when George starts talking about his travels and his life, and the dad's like, "Yeah, you know what? You need to get out of here and go do something." But he also says, I've done a lot of great things with this. It's not a bad job, but go find yourself and do
I think that really is one of the major themes of this movie, besides that we all matter and that friends, is riches is friends, is that, hey, we all had dreams when we were 20 years old, even if we were 38. And maybe we didn't achieve them all. And, we have them snatched away a lot of times by the weights of responsibility, whether it's the family or the business, like taking over the family business. And it's about accepting this and realizing that the road not taken or the road taken can be incredibly fulfilling as well.
Yeah. And then we get to the father dies, we get to the boardroom scene, and everyone seems sort of content to let the building loans die. And like, okay, we're good. He's going to go on a trip, all right, whatever. But then Potter got to be Potter and has to say something and sets George off. He's like, say one other thing, Harry Potter was not a businessman, Lord rest his soul. And then Jimmy Stewart's like, George Bailey's like, fuck you, dude. My dad did this and that, did that. Yeah. And that sort of changed his mind. And of course, they say they'll keep it in business if he stays and runs it. And of course, like Clarence says, I know he stayed. And of course he did, and sent Harry off to college instead in his place.
That moment. There's
great shot too.
This film, exactly. I mean, there's in a film that's got a great screen. The screenplay is amazing. To me, the moments that really hit me the most are the ones that are just silent.
Yeah.
And those are that most of them are just Jimmy Stewart's expression. And I mean, this is one of the first ones here where, he's about to leave and they say, but they'll vote with Potter if otherwise. And he's frozen. And he does this a number of times in the film. Exactly. Yeah. And he doesn't need to say anything. All he needs to just look, just have that expression. You're like, exactly everything that's going through his mind right there. And I'm sure I'll point out the other parts, but this is why it's my favorite Jimmy Stewart performance. It's just the looks, just some of these expressions, some of these moments where you're just like, oh my God, my heart goes out to him.
In the very next scene, when they're picking up Harry, who we find out has a new wife, Ruth Aiken Bailey. Yeah. He does it there too, where he's like, realize when he says about the job, and they focus into him like
that scene
where he's thinking.
He's walking slowly from the train over to everyone else who's celebrating. He's just kind of like, he's looking over, just that look where he knows like it's a life sentence. He's going to be in Bedford Falls for the rest of his life.
Yeah, he wants it's obviously it's a great opportunity for his brother. He loves his brother. And he's like, I can't stop my brother from having this life. But then we have the fame party scene, and this is another lore which has been sort of disputed, where Uncle Billy's leaving drunk, and he goes off, and I'm sure you guys have heard this lore. When he goes off screen, you hear this giant crash. I'm all right. I'm all right. And you hear different stories that there's a story that it was in the script, but then it wasn't. But he still ad-libbed the line. And then you hear the story of like some PA knocked over a whole set of props, and then Thomas Mitchell improv the line, and Capra kept it. So I didn't really find out which one was exactly true. Like the last one I came down to was that it was sort of in the script, but Thomas Mitchell still ad-libbed the line because something else, like it was a bigger crash than it was supposed to be. So not really sure.
I believe in the accident and ad-lib because
I love that too.
Because of Jimmy Stewart's
his expression.
face.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can tell that it took him by surprise and he laughed.
Yeah. There's a couple moments like that. Yeah.
It seems like a genuine laugh there.
Yeah, we got a freeze here. She's no, she's not back.
Drop her a little.
There she is.
There, you're back.
There you go. Okay.
Did I disappear?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
I mean, good. Sorry, sometimes it goes spotty.
The other thing that again, another one of these Jimmy Stewart looks or one of these George Bailey looks is in the scene, and it's one of my favorite moments in the movie where he's got the pamphlets and he hears the train. He hears the whistle of the train. Here's the whistle of the train. And then he looks off and realizes like, no, I'm never going to take that train. I'm never going to take that train.
Yeah. And then we get where he's like, his mother's trying to push him to marry, and like he wants to go to Mary's, but he's like, he's still in that haze of like what Anthony said, never going to train. I need to live a little. When they go into town, and he's sort of like leering at women, which is kind of all right, calm down, George. Where he's like, the lady goes by, he's like, yeah. Then Violet spots him and sees him. And he comes up with this crazy plan, which I'm a little surprised Violet didn't go for.
Yeah, I was surprised that Violet wasn't up for it. Yeah.
But also a little surprised with like, how did this crowd suddenly surround them, a private conversation, and suddenly an audience where they're like, he's like, what? Oh, no, I'll forget about the whole thing. So then he makes his way to Mary's, and good thing Violet didn't go for it, or we might not have had a movie. And he gets to Mary's, and it's this, it's so Mary's so sweet because she's clearly been in love with him since she was, 5, and she has let me screen share again here. So she gets ready, she sees him. I'm gonna screen share again, and she sees him, and so she starts putting everything together. Okay, Buffalo Gals goes on, and she pulls out the this thing. Now, the Lasso of the Moon.
Oh,
now,
it's so cute.
What do you think that is? To me, it's clearly a drawing, painting. So many of my friends are like, oh, it's a cross stitch. I'm like, where do you see? Look at the way she pulls it out.
Sketch. That's a
it's like a sketch, right?
Yeah.
A pencil sketch or something, or like
I always thought it was a cross stitch because
everyone said
the pillow later. But because it shows up on the pillow later, though, right?
No. It's over the piano later when they're married.
I can solve it.
Look at this. Pulling it out. That's a drawing.
Okay, so you guys, in order to make a cross stitch, you have to make a pattern.
Okay, so there.
Now, normally the pattern is destroyed because you stitch through it. Know a little bit about needlework. So I believe she made the pattern. She made the drawing. And as the pattern, and then of course she loved it so much she did both. She copied it and used it as the pattern for the cross stitch.
Okay, maybe. All right. But I'm also curious if that's still in existence, because I would love that. It probably would go for thousands and thousands of dollars.
So yes. And so so George in this scene, and this is what Anthony was saying before about him being a well-rounded character, because in this scene he's being kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
Not kind of. He is a jerk.
No, he is a jerk.
He's being but like people have moods, and George Bailey is moody. I mean, we see this later on, and when the very premise of the film. But I mean, we really see him being a moody asshole in this scene.
I think he's trying to discard her because he knows what will happen if he allows her.
That's it.
Yeah.
He's trying to he's trying to push her as far away as possible by her, so she'll leave, and he doesn't have to think about that or settle down even further.
Yeah. Right. She's doing all this sweet stuff, the song, the picture, and then by the end she's like trying to be nice, and like there's that great, he's making violent love to me, mother. You tell him to go home. It's great.
Which meant something different in 46.
It did, It just meant like being flirty, I think. And
And then Jimmy Stewart gives the great look at the mom as she's like, grab the phone. She's like, he doesn't want to talk to George. She's like, yes, And then the mom, George gives him a look like, go upstairs a little bit.
Get out of here, And then of course the kiss scene, which is the most awkward kiss as well. So, but also because apparently Stewart was so nervous to do this because he hadn't been in films for a while because he's in the war, and he kept kind of, I guess, telling, I don't want to shoot the scene yet. Kept sort of delaying the scene, I think. And so when they get to it, they just sort of did it with not much rehearsal, if I understand correctly, and just sort of let it go. And there was also the story that possibly they left out some dialogue, or they kept it going because it worked. It was an awkward kiss, but also you couldn't get away with like a passionate kiss in those days, to the point where the embrace apparently got too passionate. They had to cut away. So it was like, what was happening in that embrace afterwards? What's going on? And, hee-haw indeed.
They were making too violent of love.
Yes. But then because he realizes like, oh, of course I love this girl, like, my God, I've been in love with her as well for a long time, and gives into his natural tendencies.
Do you see that scene where they're on the telephone talking to the guy who's in
Sam Wainwright,
the plastics king?
Yeah.
So obviously this is a prequel. Say it takes place in the same universe as The Graduate. And we're on the, they're on the phone, and, they're fighting. And Mary's mad at George because he's been, being a jerk. But you see them, on the phones of the day, which was the two-piecer. and the acting by Reed and Jimmy Stewart is just incredible. Like, you can see they're fighting, their attraction, they're fighting the interior. It's like, finally,
facial nuances.
It's brilliant, just brilliant.
But then 4 months later, married, who catches the bouquet? Violet. Poor Violet. Can't catch a break. So we're in the cab, and they're heading off to their honeymoon. And Ernie pulls out a bottle of champagne. Now, this is from Bert the Cop. This is 1932. Prohibition is happening. And Bert the Cop gave him a bottle of champagne? What the hell? We're like, come on. Bert, what's going on, buddy? There's lots of drinking throughout this film. Like, they were breaking the law left and right. The run on the bank, so he goes in, and they're trying to figure out how to save the building and loans. Mary shows up. We have our $2,000 kitty for our honeymoon. Let's use that. So everyone lines up, and he convinces them, you got to take some money, whatever. And fucking Tom, this $242. What a dick. Like, I'll take $242. It's like, come on. So he gives it to that one. And then other people are like, okay, $20. And then apparently the line goes with the 1750 line. Apparently Capra told her to change it at the last minute, because I think it was like 20 or more is going to be, or 17.
I was just 17,
and so and then she changes it, and again, like with George laughing at the crash off scene, you could see sort of the whole crowd when Bailey or Stewart just sort of improvs that kiss, her surprise, and then everyone else is surprised, and they kept it all in. That was such a great moment.
But once again, go on, Anthony. Sorry.
This might be the exact same thing. Like, once again, I mean, now we're meeting more people in the community who are then going to come back later. Like, I mean, we're even Tom. Like, Tom has like 30 seconds of screen time here, and yet he's going to come back at the very end, and he's going to get money. And you're like, what goes around comes around. Yeah.
But I mean, this is another, like, George is on the very brink. I mean, it's literally, again, the screenplay
on the way to the airport,
on the way to the train, and it's like, there's multiple callbacks in this where he's like, I've got to catch the train. Terrible, Jimmy Stewart. It's like, and then he looks looks at the watch. It's already left. George's train has already left. It's just, he cannot catch a break. Like, there's a freaking run on the bank.
It's
like
his wedding.
He's getting into the cab, and then the cabbie's like, hey, look, it's a run on your bank.
Never actually seen one. It's got all the earmarks of a run. But yeah, it's I think about 3 hours pass between 3 or so. So Mary slips out somehow, and then calls 320 Sycamore, the Waldorf. And 320 Sycamore, as we know, is the old Granville house. So I have a theory, because, like, how did she get all that done?
Right. Yeah.
They were heading to they were heading on their honeymoon. How did she get? So my theory is that she had been saving money her whole life, because she worked in New York for a while. She bought this house like when they were married secretly, or right before then, probably before then even, and had plans while they were away for 2 weeks to have friends and family to work on it. So they'd kind of started on it a little. So there's a little bit in there. So then she had 3 hours. Like, holy shit, what am I going to do? Calls up Ernie and Bert and a bunch of other friends, I'm sure, jumped over. Let's put all this stuff together real quick last minute. We can't obviously fix the whole house, but let's do what we can in 3 hours. So she gets all that help within 3 hours. And that's how I think eventually she so that's my thinking. She's had that house. She didn't just suddenly go buy it in 3 hours. Maybe she did. Maybe
And I mean, that's just maybe the second fantasy element of the film for me. If I was Mary, I would not have created a honeymoon hotel in a wrecked house of my
but that's love. Come on.
I know. Well,
I would have done that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I might have too. I don't know.
The second I saw the chickens cooking over the fire with the record player, I was like, yeah, I would try to.
All right, to make chicken salad out of chicken feathers. All right, I hear you.
Yeah, for sure. So then we get Martini. We meet Mr. Martini and Nick.
What's it called? Bailey Town, Bailey Village,
no, Bailey Park.
Bailey Park.
So Mr. Martini gets his own house. Dangerously puts a goat with giant horns in the back of a car with his kids. Like, if you notice, Donna Reed like grabs the horns. She's okay. She's concerned about the kids. And why is Sam Wainwright, who's rich? Why are they driving down to Florida? Wouldn't they get like a first class train ticket? Anyway.
The size of the diamond on his wife's hand.
Oh my God. She's just like and then so then we get George goes to Potter's office, and Potter wants to hire him. So I'm going to share the screen here again. So he goes to, of course, the chair's lower to make Potter seem more powerful. So he offers him work, and he's like, if you notice on Potter's desk, look at all this stuff.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay. I have the same question.
Finally found out what it all is.
Okay. Is this a prequel to Mask of the Red Death?
Exactly.
What is happening?
So here's what's happening. This plagued me for years. I looked it up. So obviously the skull's intention of being. So this is an old Memento Mori watch. So you see the chain? This is a watch. I can show you a picture of it. So it opens up. It's a timepiece dating back to like Mary Queen of Scots, this type of watch.
Wow.
This is the lighter for cigars. This, I believe, is a stamp, like where you stamp things. This at first I was like, is that a spoon? Was he a crackhead? Like, that spoon is all black? No, that's actually ink. So underneath the candle, so that's the ink, and then I think the stamp goes to the ink. That's what it is. So it took me forever to figure all this out.
Oh, this is brilliant, but I have the same thing because it's like, he's such an evil old, shit goblin that he keeps all this death crap on his desk because
Potter was goth as fuck.
Yeah, right. Maybe he's cool.
Yeah.
Well, because his manservant, he dressed exactly like him.
Lurch, yeah.
Like he was in the exact same suit. I'm like, oh, he has to have a twin too.
But he offers him some big money, like $20,000 in today's world. I looked it up, is like $267,000.
A lot of money.
So he offered him that much, like a yearly salary. I'm like, holy shit!
Wow.
Like he was really ready, but he also knew, like, and once again, all it took was a handshake with Potter, where George would be like, wait a minute, like wipes it all off.
Oh, that's it. The fact that when he shakes his hand, he decides he's too damp and nasty, like too
deal with the devil.
Gross, like
death dealer, death eater. He's a death eater.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Henry Potter. Yeah, he's probably related.
Okay,
so he gets home. Go ahead.
Okay, here's the question I have for you guys: Is Harry, or not Harry Potter?
Henry
F. Potter. Is Henry F. Potter one-dimensional as a villain? And if so, is that okay? Here's my theory: is that I've never found him as one-dimensional because here's the backstory that I created for him.
Okay.
He's Richard III. So he had, he's had his disability his entire life.
Yes.
He was probably mocked and ridiculed by even his parents.
Yeah.
Or like, his peers, like the other kids, that sort of thing. And that's why, that's why nobody likes him. He doesn't like anybody else, and nobody likes him. So that's why I've always looked at him as not being one-dimensional. I don't know if I've read somewhere along the way it's like, oh, well, he's a cliched bad guy or that sort of thing. But I'm like, no, I think there's nuance there. And I see every now and then you see that in just like a flicker of the eye by Potter, or just like, that turn of phrase where, well, I don't like anybody, but they don't like me either. Like, to me, those two lines speak the world about this character.
Yeah.
Well,
he's joyless. He's completely joyless. Has no, I mean, I can't think of anybody in today's world like that who's hates everybody, doesn't even people like it, like that, whatever. But yeah,
you know what?
the bullied turns bullied.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of idea of like that bitterness that seeps in and rots you.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just say, obviously, Mr. Smithers, Mr. Burns and Smithers from The Simpsons is a takeoff on Henry Potter. But, maybe, something, maybe the first time I watched this movie, I thought it was one-dimensional. In 2020, I think it's quite realistic.
Yeah, for sure.
It's quite realistic.
I agree. So then we get George goes home sort of unsure of what he did, and we find out that they're about to have their first kid, but they can't say the word pregnant. And back then, so she has to say, "You're on the nest."
You're on the nest.
It's so great.
That's so good.
Like, George Bailey Lasso Stork, and it's a boy and a girl, which is great. So that's exactly, it's great. So then we get a montage. 4 kids, the war. Harry's a hero. George can go because of his ear. He's 4F. Everybody has their jobs during this, of course. And then after the montage, we're caught up to the present. And as we know, it's long established. Uncle Billy's forgetful. They're having a big celebration in town because Harry's coming home. He's a war hero. He's got, he
won the Congressional Medal of Honor.
We're shooting down 15 planes. Are about to go into this, troop transport. So we get fucking Uncle Billy. Why would you give him $8,000 to deposit, which is about $100,000 today? Give it to Eustace or Tilly. My God. And he goes, and he's trying to give it to Potter, but then puts some money in the newspaper, gives it to him, and Potter straight up steals it. Knows he did it, which legally he could get in trouble for later because he knows where it goes. He gets back and then doesn't know what happened to it, like, because he's forgetful, doesn't realize right away, like, where's your deposit money? He's like, whoa, I forgot, maybe that thing, or no. So we get there, then him and George have their seed, and we start to see George unravel here. It's like you've seen little bits of it. Here he straight up like grabs him by the, where's that money? Like
George cracks.
He does.
He cracks. Now, so I want to say this is the third time that George is like, it's all happening so quickly, which a little stretching. Like, oh, here's the bank auditor, and you don't have the money, and the cops are coming to arrest you. Well, there hasn't technically been fraud yet because it wouldn't have cleared, and it's Christmas. Right. So the bank probably would have closed at noon anyway. So
and also, why are you depositing money in a bank? You're your own bank.
That didn't hold up to less scrutiny. But here's my second question.
Okay.
This is actually my second question. And we established that Harry is the war hero, and their mother went off to Washington. He got the Congressional Medal of Honor from President Roosevelt. I guess he was Truman, right? I was going to say, I believe Roosevelt, as president. And they're talking on the phone, long distance, super expensive. What kind of shit doesn't invite his own brother to his Congressional Medal of Honor ceremony?
Well, he probably did, but he's at home dealing with work.
Yep.
Right.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure George would have loved to have gone, but somebody's got to be around.
Somebody's got to stay home. I'm sure he did. Yeah.
I
think he did. Harry's had the charmed life.
I understand in the world of It's a Wonderful Life that George couldn't go, and I accept that.
Yeah.
But
we just don't see. I'm sure it was off screen that Harry asked him. At some point.
Right. It's like, Harry, I'd love to go, but I've got to give this $8,000 to Uncle Billy.
Yeah. Well, then we get to where George is unraveling, or is unraveled. He gets home and he's just like, he's losing it and takes it on his family. And you watch, like, even the little actors. My God, the kids were great. The looks of it, the dad's never done this. And Mary, of course, notices right away when he walks in, something's up, and tries to talk to him about it, but he's not into it. And another scene, like Anthony says, happens where he grabs little Tommy and he's crying and holding him dearly, kissing him. And it's silent. You just see his face, the anguish. And then we turn to Mary, and Mary sees that, like, holy shit, something big happened.
The room got real heavy.
Yeah. And it did.
So heavy right there.
Yeah, it really did. And then we set up another thing where he's on the phone with the teacher. Zuzu's sick, and that's where we get Zuzu's pedals. paste it, and three little pedals he sticks them in, and
she hung up. I'll hang her up.
I'll hang her up. Oh, Mr. Welch, I can really tell you about your wife. So he gets an argument with the husband, who says he's gonna knock his block off. So he storms out, and but he goes to Potter and begs for money, who of course is like, fuck you.
I've got some money right here in my desk drawer.
You don't know it. So he disappears and he goes to Martini's, which is weirdly crowded on Christmas Eve. And again, another moment we have here that Anthony was talking about. If you notice, especially the black and white version, you can notice this. So it was a long shot, and then we see George Bailey so anguished and like, please, dear God, help me, and it gets a little grainy. So the story is that they had shot a long shot, but he did such a great take of that, and for some reason Capra couldn't shoot again, and wanted a close up of his face. So obviously they didn't have digital back then, couldn't zoom in. So he did. Anthony probably knows more, but he did something with the film where they could expand it to make it close up more on other terms, and so that's why it's a little bit grainy from the rest of the film, just that scene, because he wanted that look on his face to see, his anguish, where he's like at his last rope. He's like, where he's approaching, like, okay, I guess I gotta end it all. And then he gets a punch in the face from Welch, and that's when he decides to.
That's what you get for praying.
That's what you get for praying. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's got his life insurance policy in his pocket.
Yeah.
And that also that weight of knowing he's worth more dead than alive.
Yeah. And so that's when he goes to the bridge and starts thinking, I'm gonna kill myself. And that's when finally, see, people think Clarence is not in this film a lot.
I know, right?
His voice is, but he physically does not appear to the last act of the film, pretty much. And finally Clarence appears, and there's a whole he decides to jump in so George can save him, and it like doesn't even hide, I'm an angel, and like for some reason the bridge keeper, his spotlight, like his flashlight was like a freaking spotlight. Like, that is the strongest flashlight I've ever seen in my life.
Previewed the halogen, man.
Also, what is the bridge keeper doing there on Christmas Eve?
Yeah, well, again, you got to have, everyone has a job. They got to.
Everybody was working on this Christmas Eve, man.
Yeah. So we get to the whole point of that where it gets to George, which he's never been born. And Clarence like, hey, that's not a bad idea. And it's the whole sequence of the unborn starts happening. We get a Nick's bar scene, the flaming run punch. Out you two pixies go. Out the, and she starts, and why is everyone acting differently? And because I told you haven't been born. So we get to this whole little almost montage. He goes to Pottersville. And I mean, Potterville is pretty fucking lit. I mean, there's strip clubs, there's bars,
gambling.
I mean,
jazz music.
I mean,
and Sheldon Leonard.
Yeah, Nick owns a bar. Sheldon Leonard. Nick is like, out you two pixies. It's like, so you see all this stuff, and of course George is horrified. Like, it's like Pottersville. We see Gower in the bar, who's a rummy because he killed a kid because George was there to save him. All this stuff, and then we see Violet. We see Bert and Ernie, show up, and then Mary's an old. I have to bring it. Okay, so the Mary being the old maid in the library.
I have something to say about this.
Yes, I bet. Yeah, my friend does too. And go ahead, good. Erin, you go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. If there is any flaw in this whole movie, this is the only one.
Capra admits it. Yes.
We have spent the entire movie knowing how amazing Mary is. Beautiful, educated. She could whip a honeymoon up in no time and remake an entire house and
build a house.
She's resourceful. She's adventurous. And we also have the whole time of George's insecurity that she could have had anyone. She could have had any man, be living in New York, flying off to Europe, plastics business up to here. But for some reason they make her this unmarried library working. That is not Mary. No, that would never happen.
That would absolutely not.
Absolutely. I have a librarian friend who hates that. She's like, I hate that.
But what my mind went to and where they really missed the beat was where Mary would have ended up was in a loveless marriage.
Yes, like the original story.
Without children. And living maybe in some high rise in New York, completely alone and sad.
Maybe married to Sam Wainwright.
married to Sam Wainwright or something. But Mary as a character would never have been like this unmarried, dowdy, lifeless person ever.
Oh, okay, I agree with you. However, here's one possibility is that she would eventually find out, Sam Wainwright wasn't right for her. Really, she knew that her soulmate was not there, being George Bailey. So, she never got married because of that. Secondly, why is working at the library a bad thing? What if she actually took over the library and she like renovated the library? Like that was her mission. Like she was Andy Dufresne in the Shawshank Redemption.
Okay.
We all love librarians.
We all love libraries.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, you caught her at a bad time. Like, like she's leaving, the reason she looks like she's dour in a bad mood because she's got some stranger that's like rushing up to her. Like, of course you're gonna look like in a bad.
Well, they did make her look a little dowdy.
They made her look like makeup lift.
So wait,
I for the most part I agree with you. I'm just going, well, maybe you could use that as an excuse. Yeah.
I'm also looking at it with like my eyes now in 2020, versus probably where they were going. But to me, like they built up this whole movie about how amazing Mary is.
Yeah.
Did Capra, but you say Capra also?
Capra lamented years later. He goes, the one thing I wish I would have changed was not to make, would have been to make her strong and independent and not a feeble, stereotypical spinster.
Yeah.
Because in the original story by Philip Van Doren Stern, she is married and seemingly is kind of a loveless marriage, but she does have 2 kids. But she does seem like not very happy in that marriage. So that's definitely like the lone sort of, you could call like flaw in this film is
so she's Leah Thompson from Back to the Future Part 2.
Yes,
there you go. There you go.
A direct homage.
There you go.
And I think it speaks to, again, the mid-century feeling. It's like, the movie's kind of full of stereotypes, but most of the stereotypes are fully fleshed out so that they're more like archetypes, right? But the one dowdy spinster librarian is the one stereotype that we just don't buy it. We just don't buy it.
Yeah, that's the only part. So then we get like he had visited the home and he's realizing that the entire world is different. It's not him. So he escapes from Bert, and Bert, the irresponsible cop, once again shoots into a crowd of people.
Yes, okay,
A crowd of people. And if you notice in the background, the Potter's sign, when he shoots, one of the lights go out. And that's actually was just coincidence. It was like one of the bulbs happened to go out at the time when the shots went off. So like they were like, no, that was total coincidence. Like we did not plan that. It just happened to be he's aiming that way. But yeah, just shooting into a crowd. Like he's just like, hey, duck. Oh yeah, sure, everybody duck.
I do want to point out. I mentioned there's these certain moments where Jimmy Stewart gives his look. It's the one after he leaves the Ma Bailey's boarding house.
Yes.
And he rushes off the step and it's just like goes to the close up and he's just like, and that look in his eye, like that's where he sells it. Like this is a man who will commit suicide. I mean, he is like he has the ability to do that. And that that moment is just so it's
so powerful.
But also his mom, Beulah, as an actress.
Beulah Bondi.
Beulah Bondi, who
played his mom in
5 times.
Yeah,
his mom.
Professional Jimmy Stewart mom.
Yeah.
Her entire look changed.
Yes.
I mean, her whole body was different, and she scared me.
Yeah, she really did. Yeah.
Like a hard, terrible, sad life.
Yeah.
And here was this, vibrant person before. But talk about just, that scene of it as an actress between them. Like that was a different woman.
Yeah.
That wasn't just not his mom. That was a different woman.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. She's an incredible actress. Of course, she was in a lot of Capra films as well. So then after all this, he realizes, oh my God, holy shit, I did have a pretty good life, and this certainly don't want this one. Back to the bridge. I want to live again, and
I want to live.
Bert, and then you first notice, the cop car coming up, like, oh shit, Bert's coming to get him. Is it still the unborn sequence? And then the snow starts.
It's the snow.
Yep, and then the snow starts. You're like,
he's praying, and all of a sudden, the snow starts. And
slowly starts.
The moment.
I just got goosebumps.
And then it's like Bert shows up, and he's like, you know me? Zuzu's pedals, there they are. What do you know about that? So he runs through town screaming, Merry Christmas, everybody, and he gets home, hugs the kids. Mary's joyous, is like practically making out with Mary on the in front of. I mean, your kid is on your back. Calm down. Zuzu, my little ginger snap, which apparently was the name of a cookie back then, was a type of ginger snap was called Zuzu.
Oh, okay.
And then the money table. We get to the money table where and meanwhile, people showed up to arrest him and take because of all the $8,000. So Uncle Billy fucking Uncle Billy comes in and Mary did it. All the stuff, all the money there. Everybody from town shows up, start throwing down money. Sam sends in $25,000, which after that was announced, I would have been like, "Can I have my money back?"
No, just like,
can I maybe take I got a kids to feed. Everyone shows up. If you look closely, even Mr. Welch is there.
I know.
The guy who punched him.
Yeah.
Get that guy out of there. And also that dick Tom who demanded $242. Hey Tom, go fuck yourself. Get out of here. It's like,
but then the bank investigator also the bank. He's just like,
yeah.
All right.
Carter drops it in. The cop rips up the warrant, which is probably not legal. But it's like, who cares? Where did Bert get that accordion? Who cares? And when Harry arrives and says, "To my big brother George, the richest man in town," tears every time.
Every time.
Every time. And then
it's one of those moments. Like there's maybe 4 or 5 films where there's just one particular cue or a particular moment. Like, whoa, the water ducks just.
Oh God. And then we get the Tom Sawyer shows up, the famous quote, "Remember, no man is a failure who has friends." Yet another affirmation I try to hold on to. What's funny when Mary asks, "Who's a very dear friend of mine?" She knows all of his friends. She's probably like, "Fuck is Clarence? What are you talking about? A friend of yours? I don't know this dude." Whatever, it's Christmas, it's fine. We'll talk about this later. And then of course every time a bell rings, Danger gets his wing. Attaboy, Clarence. And then we get this beautiful ending to, old Lang Syne, it's just like,
it's just
like, it's so beautiful.
It's just magical. And but Jimmy and I were talking about this. I will say, Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
The lost ending.
I love that.
You know what? Let me see do you mind if I share the screen if I can? Because
kicking the pants out of Pop.
Because you know what? Okay, so now this is what
because this relates to this. They had a code back then where the bad guys couldn't get away with it in films. And like all the mobster films, they're like they had to show them getting arrested, something happening to them. They got away with them without him getting in trouble.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So this SNL sequel resolves that.
Let's see. And you know what? I just really enjoy it.
We're not seeing it. We're just seeing.
Oh yeah, we don't see it.
Just go to the YouTubes and do it there. But that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
It's not showing. It's not showing. We're not seeing it.
Oh, okay. You weren't seeing it. Okay.
No.
It wasn't working. Okay. I'll cut this part out. Anyway, it's so good. It's just, I watched that because you really, let me stop sharing so you can't see my desktop. Sorry there. There we go.
Hide the porn.
Yeah. So, And
that's great. So
it's just so good to see Potter. And you know what? One thing. And you know what? One thing about that I love is that Dennis Miller was in that sketch.
Yeah,
it's the brother. He was right. He hardly ever. It's like one of his 3 or 4 max, and it's just perfect. Yeah.
So during this time there were radio versions of it. The 1947 Lux Radio Theater was an hour long, and it had Stewart and Reed in it as well. But
which is crazy. Sorry to cut you off there, Jimmy. Which is crazy when you think about it. Like today, if you were to go out and do promotion, would you be able to get like a Tom Cruise or all the top actors to do like a radio, like 1 hour radio reenactment of it? No,
which is great.
So I mean,
and it wasn't the only one they did.
I love the fact that you could do that at that time.
Yeah, and they did play, like that was the thing they did. So there was also a 30-minute version with Stewart, and I forgot who the actress was playing Mary, but they have as Clarence, they have Arthur Q. Bryan. Do you recognize that name? The voice of Elmer Fudd.
Oh yeah.
And he basically plays Elmer Fudd as Clarence, and it's the weirdest thing with like, oh George. It's so funny. It's more of a comical version because it's like in 30 minutes. And there's even a great moment where she's like, "He's making violent love to me, mother." And the mom's like, "Well, you tell him to stop. It's Sunday." There's been many other productions, some attempts at some very bad musical versions. But then I didn't see. I don't know how the Goodspeed Opera House one. Did you have any friends on that, Erin? The 2015
I'm sure
one?
I did. Who knows?
Yeah, I probably did. I didn't see that one. There's also operas. Houston Opera did one in 2016. And there were kind of some remakes. There was, well, speaking of the radio show, in 1997, they did on PBS one showing. I had to track down a DVD of it years later to find it that someone just made. You can find it on YouTube now, called Merry Christmas, George Bailey. Did anyone see this?
I remember this.
So it's basically the Lux Radio Theater version, and it's Bill Pullman and Penelope Ann Miller as George and Mary, Nathan Lane as Clarence. We have Sally Field narrating it, also playing the mom. Christian Slater is Robert Guillaume, Martin Landau, Bronson Pinchot, Joe Mantegna, Carol Kane. It's just like their stage reading, but it is famous because at the ending, Pullman picks up the young actress Mae Whitman as a little girl playing Zuzu, and he drops his script, so he has to improv a couple of lines real quick, and Penelope shoves her script in front of him, you know. And but yeah, they only aired it one time, but you can find it on YouTube. And then of course there was a 1977 remake, It Happened One Christmas, with Marlo Thomas, Wayne Rogers, Cloris Leachman, and Orson Welles, which I didn't love.
Kind of speaks for itself right there.
Didn't love.
I got a question. So
I love Cloris, but no.
I didn't love.
Yeah. This play that Anthony was in, though, is this like a standard stage adaptation of it? I mean, is there?
Or did you write this one?
Yeah. Is there
I wish I'd read it. No, it was a standard one. Like, it was available through whatever the Royal, like the theater publishing company.
It's like the Lux,
French.
It's almost a Lux Radio Theater version, right?
Right. So I mean, I'm guessing.
No. It wasn't like a theater version. No, it was like fully acted out. Like fully acted out. Where
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Like that. No, it was not the radio, because I mean, I've also seen.
They do the radio play version.
Yeah,
I love the radio.
New York. I've seen
that one. That was I saw a production of Soul Pepper Theater up in Toronto like a few years ago.
I've seen it a few times here.
But no, this was fully acted out. So I mean, like, I helped build the set. So we had, like, you know, the home, and we had Gower's Pharmacy, you know.
Nice.
And I mean, the funny story was, I think it was the first performance, the actor that was playing Clarence,
horrible, and he forgot his lines. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
I think your thing went out, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
He's like, I ran into somebody, and he said, have a good time. I'm like,
have a good time. So there were, so there were, besides the SNL sequel, there was a sequel made in 1990 called Clarence, starring Robert Carradine as the angel, and again he goes down to help. But Clarence is like, he's much younger, so I actually never seen this one. Yeah, that not gotten good reviews, so I've never seen it, but I would like to see it. And they purported sequel they've been developing for quite a while. For originally 2015 release was called It's a Wonderful Life, the rest of the story. It was going to be George Bailey's daughter Zuzu, who is now an adult Carolyn Grimes, who, you know, she's got to be 60 or 70 now, and she teaches Bailey's evil grandson how different the world would have been if he had never been born. But the rights were never granted, so they never got it made. So
and the actress who played Zuzu, Carolyn Grimes, is actually kind of,
she's very active in the community.
Right. She makes, but she kind of has made, you know, she stayed on. She didn't really act a lot after the, you know, the 50s, but she does make appearance, you know, I'm as Zuzu, like she's taken that role as, you know, who wouldn't?
She said for some interview, she happened in the 70s or 80s when they started showing it and started getting more press. She said, suddenly some reporters showed up at my house and wanted to interview me. I was like, why? For this film? And she goes, I'd never seen it till then, and I was 40 years old. She didn't see it till she was 40.
Wow.
And she goes, now I've seen it hundreds of times. And she actually helped start that, which I've been wanting to go to every year, up in Seneca Falls, which is loosely claims that was the town they based Bedford Falls on. So they turned it into Bedford Falls over a weekend in December. There's even a Hotel Clarence. They have Carolyn shows up every year with it, and there's all sorts of events, and every year a bunch of us talk about going, and obviously this year there's no way it's happening.
I haven't attended the ceremony, but I mean, my wife and I actually got married in upstate New York, and so Seneca Falls was one of the places we considered. And I mean, so we actually went up, we visited. Unfortunately, the museum was closed that day that we were there, because they've got a grand museum. But this is how much I love the film and how much my wife loves me. She's like, well, I mean, Seneca Falls, like, that's Bedford Falls. You want to get married there.
One of my regular listeners said the theme of their wedding was "It's a Wonderful Life." I'm like, please share pictures. I want to see this. So I would love to see it. But speaking of all these remakes, here we go.
Oh boy.
Okay. So All right.
Can
so,
it be done? Can Jimmy
we'll
pull
see.
this one off? This
So,
is his
a
ultimate.
modern day remake. If you don't know, listeners and viewers of CBI here and CNI, I like to remake. I'm a recovering actor myself, and I'm of Asian descent, and have dealt with whitewashing. It still happens. So we thought, a lot of old films, especially, are very white. So I always recast them ethnically, and usually because I'm Asian, all Asian, or at least mostly Asian actors in it. So if there was a 2020 remake, here is what my cast would be, and I'm going to share the screen so you can see pictures in case you aren't familiar with them. So we're going to have first up James Stewart, Henry Golding.
Of course, of
Charming.
course.
We knew you'd go there.
Lovely.
I approve.
Come on.
Yes.
So great. He was even in a Christmas movie last year that didn't do that well, but I actually liked Last Christmas.
I liked the Last Christmas
I did
too, by the way.
I did too.
Okay, you know what? I think it will find its
eventually.
place.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think someday it will find its place.
Yeah. As Mary Hatch, I love that she's going to take over the role. She's a perennial favorite. She's played romantic comedies to All the Boys I Loved Before, both of them. Lana Condor.
Okay.
She's
Good.
the best. I love her so much.
She's adorable.
Yeah, and as the evil and sorry, not just one dimensional. Mr. Potter, Henry Fucker Potter. We're gonna have another favorite of mine, Beat Takeshi.
Yes.
Okay.
Takeshi Kitano, very famous. He's done a lot of American films besides his Japanese. And Uncle Billy. We're gonna have God damn it, somebody who he's mostly known for comedy, but he can play some serious stuff too. Kim Jong. That'd be great. Yeah, Uncle Billy, come on.
He should play Uncle Billy in any remake.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
As Clarence, another a theater actor we know well, but also has done plenty of film and TV, multiple types of roles. Dude can play anything, but I think he'd be a great Clarence. BD Wong.
Oh yeah.
God, look at the sweetness in the sweetness of his face, but also he can play serious very well. And just like Beulah Bondi played Jimmy Stewart's mom 5 times, she also played Henry Golding's mom before. So why not again, Michelle Yeoh as the mom? Yes, so great.
Perfect.
She's the mom.
Yeah, and as Bert and Ernie, we're gonna do these. Because they're also very male heavy. These old casts. I'm gonna gender swap these. A very well-known South Korean comedian. She has a stand-up on Netflix. You should watch it. It's very funny, but she's really funny in all these. I watch a ton of South Korean variety shows. She's always on. Park Na-rae. She's the best. She'd be great as Ernie. And then her sort of partner as Bert the cop could be Bertie. Margaret Cho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great Bert the cop.
Perfect.
And as our sexy, sex pot, sultry, but yet vulnerable, lovely Violet, one of my favorites here. I'm going to go back to South Korea as one of my favorite. She's a K-pop star, but she's also been in acting for years. If you haven't seen Persona on Netflix, it's this great South Korean 4 episode, 4 stories, vignettes. She plays the lead in every one from a few years back. She goes by the stage of IU, but she's Lee Ji-yoon. But she can play sexy. She's very cutesy and everything, but look at her Instagram pictures.
Oof.
She can be a sultry little sex pot.
Oh yeah.
That's Violet.
I love IU so much. I love her so much. Her music is fantastic. Sika IU, literally. She's the best. And of course, Mr. Gower, old drunken Mr. Gower, Kin Watanabe. What's up?
Yeah.
And Hee-haw, another great South Korean actor or comedian. He's a singer, rapper, actor, and as a comedian and does a lot of variety shows. Ha Dong-hoon, also known as Haha. That's the name he goes by. I love this dude. He's really, really funny. He's great. He'd be I could just see him doing the hee-haw stuff all the time. And Harry Bailey, we loved him in Train to Busan. We loved him in Parasite. You may know where I'm going with this one. Chua Woo-shik. Good-looking, young,
Yep, he's Harry Bailey.
Harry Bailey. And then as Peter Bailey, small role, but still important, very wizened, gives some great advice. George Takei, my dad.
Nice.
Meet him last year after I interviewed him. I may or may not have teared up after interviewing him. I did. And the last 2, real quick, we're gonna have Mr. Martini, Jackie Chan. Come on. And then as Nick, his bartender, our heartthrob from Train to Busan, soon to be in the Eternals, Ma Dong-seok.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
Come on.
Soon to be the Eternals. We have to wait a year.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then let's have John Chu, who directed Crazy Rich Asians, direct this.
We need to get you into casting.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
I know, he's so good at it.
That was so good.
You're so good at that, Jimmy. You're nailing it.
Actually, weirdly got told this years ago when I left the acting business. My friend she was like, "Do you ever want to think about casting?"
You should, but
yeah.
I'm gonna start my own company, guys. All right.
Yep.
Kino Casting. All right.
Yeah, there you go. We get our pandemic sidelights.
Yeah. If you want to roll, send me some bourbon.
I've learned how to Zoom.
Bourbon and K-pop. There you go.
Charlie and I have learned how to Zoom, and that's about all I've picked up over 9 months. So
nice. Awesome. Well, so much more I could talk about this film. I mean, it's still, like I said, this movie means so much to me. It's been a rough year for all of us, but seeing this movie literally 3 times this week has definitely given me a little pep up.
I have a question for the panel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And again, this is a classic, and it can't be remade because it's just as perfect as it is, obviously. However, the theme is actually quite similar to Christmas Carol. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I which of course has been remade from Mr.
A billion versions. Yeah.
A billion. Anyone. Charlie. In fact,
Charlie. The Muppets.
Charlie and I are going to do our own version as soon as we finish this. Okay.
Nice.
So but I mean, why do you think this idea of seeing your life, the world, without you, or as it could have been, road, these two themes of looking at taking stepping back from your life and seeing it as an observer. I mean, why do you think that's such a powerful theme for Christmas?
It's that sliding doors theory, I think, like where you just missed the door to the train. What would have happened if you'd have made it? It's that whole thing of looking, because Christmas is just such a sentimental time for many people. To me, it's a joyous time. I don't understand the Christmas haters. Like, unless you had what happened to you to Phoebe Cates and Gremlins, you have no reason to hate Christmas. Unless it happened, I get it. Then I'm like, okay, I understand.
That was a nightmare.
Phoebe Cates and Gremlins, that's definitely a nightmare for sure. But it's to me such a joyous time of year, like where people give and love and show concern and care for one another, more so than any other time of the year. And yes, of course, there's sadness that people have around it. Certainly, things have happened around those times. I understand if people, it's not their favorite because of personal things that have happened. But I think because of that sentimentality, be it good or bad, people always want to step away and go, what would it be like, if I wasn't around, something like that. Maybe. I don't know.
I think Christmas tends to be quiet, if that makes any sense. Yeah. People are staying home. They're with their families, or even if they don't, aren't able to gather with families, because everything kind of shuts down and there's all this peace and quiet. I think that gives you time for reflection. I think you're sitting and possibly listening to music. Everything is, you've got twinkly lights, but there's stillness and quiet around Christmas time. And I think that is why people get sad, because that does leave time to think about maybe friends or family that are gone, or things, because of the peace and quiet, I think.
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah, very good. Much better than mine.
Anthony, any thoughts?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, it's that, for me, the holidays have always been, people will stop work. They'll have a week or a couple of weeks off, especially because it's also close to January 1st in the new year when people are doing the resolutions. It's the perfect time to sit back and reflect on your own life and where you are in it, and, and any other changes or regret maybe as well.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, that's what this movie covers so well. It's like, I don't want to look at it as George has regrets. He just chose to help people over his own happiness. So it's not necessarily he regrets it. He just misses what he could have had. But then realizes maybe that wasn't what he wanted, or would have been the best for him.
I was going to say, Oh, go on. No.
I was going to say, I think it's also hard for people sometimes to see our worth and value, especially to other people.
Right.
So I think he's going through his life as the things he needs to do and the things he has to do, but doesn't have time to sit around and say, or have that reflection for most of the time of how he affects people. I think he's just going forward. doing what he has to do.
But I think, I mean, I agree. I think it's because of the reflection and, what would have happened if that we think about, and like, when I was a kid, I was always wanted to be a writer, always. And I was always like, I'm going to write a novel. And it's always like, oh, January 1st, always. I don't make New Year's resolutions, but it was always like, I'm going to write a novel. This is the year I write a novel. And, and then it never did. And then finally, a while ago, 20 years ago, so I was just like, you know what? I don't want to write that novel. It's not what I actually do, because every time I have a chance to do it, I make a different decision. And I think that's what George Bailey did too. Every time he has a chance to make this decision to go, tool around Europe, he decides to help people instead. And I think at the end of this movie, he realizes, like we're saying, that helping people is what he always really wanted to do.
Yeah. And that's something, again, I identify with, because I certainly have not lived George Bailey's life. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done some bad things, I'm sure. I'm still wanted in Poland. But it's I'd like to think that I have helped people and have gone out of my way to help them. And often at the sacrifice of my own happiness, knowing that, okay, that's going to make them feel better or make them better about things. Again, it's not a regretful thing. It's just like, oh, I missed out on this thing because I was doing that for this person. And that, to me, I was always I know gifts aren't the thing, but I love giving gifts. And I joke, yeah, you guys better buy me something. I don't care if you buy me things. It's fine. You don't. I know. I really don't. And it's especially now, I'm I got whatever I need. If I not, I can get it. Yeah. That being said, if you can find the whole village,
that'd be a
but
find.
It's but I honestly that whole thing of when I give gifts and the first thing out of someone's mouth, it kind of annoys me a little bit. Oh, but I didn't get you anything. That's not why I'm doing this. I got this because I want to see the happiness it brings you, that I got you this. And it makes you, whether it's a temporary joy or whatever, it genuinely delights me that when you open it up, you're like, oh my God, thanks so much. I wanted the entire Blackpink collection. I'm like, I knew you would. And, and it's I'm converting everyone to K-pop. And so that's what I enjoyed. I think that's, maybe that's my influence from George Bailey, that he enjoys giving that gift to others. I probably need to learn a better lesson of not expecting too much thanks afterwards. But yeah, that's exactly. It's more about seeing the other people and making them happy. So hopefully I've learned a little and can take from that for sure.
Oh,
any final thoughts on the movie? Anybody that we may have left out? Any little bits?
So, well, I'll just say, one of the real joys of doing Comic Beat Insider with Jimmy is, besides something fun to do on Friday, is that he, one of the conceits was that we pick a movie that the other hasn't seen, or they're usually somebody who hasn't seen the movie, so we get a fresh, take. Mm-hmm. And I've watched a lot of movies I wouldn't have watched otherwise that are really great. And I say It's a Wonderful Life wasn't necessarily on my must-do Christmas list, but you know what? It should be.
Yeah.
It should be.
It's a year-round film. You can watch any time of year. Arbor Day, Labor Day, whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
My birthday coming up December 9th. Not that I want gifts. I'm not saying that.
Check out Jimmy's Amazon wish list.
Oh God, I haven't visited that in ages. My God, I know it's on.
Yeah, well, update it. You better update it.
Oh,
buddy.
You're right. I did just get a from our fellow. I'll show you. Speaking of Christmas Carol, DC came out with some adorable new, and I'm not a collector of Funkos or action figures at all. I usually don't collect them, but they came with some adorable DC ones with Batman, Superman, Joker, and Holly. I'm like, oh, these are amazing! I want these. And our regular panelist, one of my best pals, sends me the Batman as Scrooge.
Brilliant.
It's got in the mail yesterday. He sent it to me just as a surprise, saying hey, kicking off the Comic Beat Insider Christmas thing of episodes, and great. Look at his freaking slippers. Look at those slippers. My God, great.
It's fantastic.
Batman as Scrooge is the title of it. So yeah.
Well, just anyway. A little housekeeping here before we go. I'm sorry. Actually, Erin and Anthony, what are your wrap up thoughts? I'm sorry.
Besides that, I'm so glad I got to sit down and watch this movie last night. It lifted me up. It warmed my heart.
Yep.
It brought out new things that it's almost like I saw it again for the first time. I don't
Yeah.
know why, but I did last night. So I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad, Jimmy, you asked me to join this awesome panel, because I'm ready for what's next the rest of this year, because it has been a difficult one.
Yeah.
And we all have our struggles this year. So it is a reminder that we can go back to the films that we love and lift us up and teach us something new.
Yes.
And keep us going.
Yes. There's always hope. So yes.
Anthony?
Hope,
yeah. I mean, can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay. From my perspective, I mean, because of the pandemic, I mean, I think Heidi had mentioned, like, I've been watching a lot of TCM. So I've been catching up on a lot of classic movies, even ones with Gloria Graham.
Her Oscar win in Bad and Beautiful. Oh my God.
Just do a whole episode we can talk about her gossip. And
well, they did. Awesome. They did a whole day of Gloria Graham films, actually. So
greatest show on earth.
It was so good. Yeah.
So I mean, it's been really, it's been great, because I mean, I've knocked a bunch of films that I hadn't seen, off my list, and now it's great to be able to sit down with you guys and talk about, the ultimate black and white, the ultimate classic movie. It's a Wonderful Life. And again, as I said at the outset, I mean, it's my favorite movie of all time. When people ask me, like, what are your favorites? I mean, I can say, like, number one by far, it's not even close as It's Wonderful Life, and there's a bunch of others. And so, I mean, it's great just to be able to geek out on it. And Heidi, I mean, some of the questions you've been asking here about theme and everything are things that I've thought about. And I'm so glad that we can talk about this, because it's an important movie. I mean, this is not only an entertaining movie, but it's also something that can be enlightening and inspiring. And I mean, it seems like it's brought joy into 4 people this afternoon, and whoever listens to this along the way. And I'm so glad to have been a part of it.
Yeah. I think between the 4, so there, as we mentioned, there has not been really many great stage versions, especially musical wise. Maybe between the 4 of us, we can write a new musical based on this, and get a good one out there and produce it, because I would love to produce, some sort of.
Well, it's funny, because we should do a sequel where George does get on the train, and it's a train to Busan.
Yeah. Oh, geez. That's definitely a whole other film.
So
come at me, doggone it! I'll take Susan's pedals and throw them at you.
So anyway, the housekeeping I was just about to say is, if you're watching, remember to subscribe to this Jimmy's podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to Comic News Insider, subscribe to Comic Beat Insider. The other is just Jimmy Loves Christmas. Like I said, this is a little early for me. My birthday's
never
coming right
too
up.
early. I've already put my decorations up.
And we both agreed we don't do Christmas before our birthday, but here we are.
But I said sometimes you need a little Christmas right this very minute.
Gotta have a little. So all right, so that's it. 2020 Christmas from November on. So our next week we're going to be doing the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special,
a brand new one,
and a brand new one debuting next week, and then also the original Star Wars Holiday Special.
Oof.
And then we have like Christmas all the way through. We're doing Christmas all the way through December, as long as we
White
keep
Christmas,
doing this.
Arthur Christmas, all sorts.
All the Mr. Magoo's Christmas, just
all
Christmas,
of them.
Miracle on 34th. Miracle
yes.
on 34th.
Yep. Another favorite I love. Yep.
Yeah, we got Christmas.
Little Natalie Wood. Yeah.
We got the Christmas coming out, the yin yang here.
Yep.
So
you are doing White Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
My absolute favorite. Next to this.
Oh, all right. Maybe we have room in the panel. We'll see.
Yeah, there we go. We got a lot of Christmas lovers here.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So thank you so much, everybody, guys, for joining.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Erin.
Watching live right now.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
And for the podcast version, of course, we put this in Comic News Insider. A lot of people like to just listen while they're on the train or in the car. So the non-visual podcast version of this will be up tomorrow. But thanks again, everybody. This is Jimmy Aquino with the podcast Comic News Insider, covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture. Go to comicnewsinsider.com for a lot of the information. You can just find me at Jimmy Aquino, JIMMYAQUINO, on all the socials.
And I'm Heidi McDonald, the editor-in-chief of The Beat. That's at comicsbeat.com. And you can find me on all social media as Comics Ace, COMIXACE.
Erin? You want to be found anywhere?
Sure. I am at Erin Crosby Sings on both Twitter and Instagram. And that content's going to be lots of flowers, dogs, and food.
Amazing food. Anthony?
I am at, you can find me AnthonyDelcall.com, DELCOL.com. On Twitter, I'm Anthony_Delcall, and Instagram, Anthony Delcall.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for the panel. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We appreciate it. And we're gonna get out of here. And
All right.
Goodbye.
Thank you,
Nice.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merry good
Merry
night.
Christmas.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.